Hello, thank you for joining us today on our webinar on making digital transformation work, how to overcome challenges and deliver strategic results. I am very excited to be joined today by Andy Jordan. Andy is a pro in the consulting world, a leader in the PMO and thought leader in this space. He's had years and years of experience helping companies make digital transformation, make it successful. And so I'm very excited to have him sharing his advice on how to help you do the same in your organization. He's with Rafensian Consulting, by the way. Also joined by Jose Levy, who's our senior account executive here at OnePlan, who will be showing some ways that you can help with your digital transformation using OnePlan as a tool. So with that, I will kick it off to Andy, let the folks know that we're open for questions. So if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box and we'll get to those as well. We're gonna make this more of a chat back and forth and allow audience interaction. So thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Andy, for sharing your insights.
Not at all. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you for that introduction. Thanks, everybody, for joining us, most importantly. And yes, as I go through this, if anything doesn't make sense or if you violently disagree with anything that I'm saying, please throw it into the questions or the chat box and we'll get to as many comments and questions as we can. You can see the agenda in front of you. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we're going to go through it, but just want to sort of give you a little bit of context. That I want to start with the background as to why this stuff's important, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the meat of the presentation, the actual digital transformation thing. But I don't want you to go away with just theory. So I want to have a little bit of time just to talk at the end about not just why it's important, but how you can start making changes in your organization. So we'll do that, and then Jose is going to speak for a couple of minutes, and we'll get to those questions that we haven't dealt with as we go. So let's go on. Background, okay? We'll get straight on with it. What the heck are we talking about when we talk about digital transformation? It's one of those things that if you ask somebody what it means, they'll be able to tell you. But not necessarily everybody's going to tell you the same thing. There could be a few issues. There could be a few people saying, well, I think it's this. No, it's not that, it's this. So this is my take on what digital transformation is and maybe more importantly, what it isn't. As far as I'm concerned, it's about more than just the technology. It's about making sure that you're actually thinking differently about how work gets done, potentially even rethinking what work gets done, what's possible, what can be achieved as a result of effectively and efficiently leveraging the advances that are happening all the time in the technology realm. That means that you're not just doing a transformation and then going back to running the business. It means that you're thinking about transformation constantly because the pace of technology is continuing to accelerate. I mean, just look at what's happening in the AI space. So you've got to really think about this as a journey. And I'm not sure that a lot of organizations are actually taking that mindset. Instead, they focus on the technology piece of it, which is important, but it's not the be all and end all. That's just the foundation for everything else. Then they look at doing the same thing, but trying to be more effective and efficient in how they do it. Well, yes, automation and workflows, and that's important. But that's not transformation. That's just optimizing what you do. And there's got to be more to it than just making what you do today better. Just like there's got to be more than just this is where we want to get to and then we'll go back to doing other stuff. It's more than that. So Jose, you and I were talking a little while ago, and I think you've got some sort of thoughts or questions or something that you weren't quite sure of on this one.
Yeah, it's really about, I think that the term is thrown around a lot, and we need to be clear on what we mean by digital transformation. I think you're gonna lead us into that in the next set of slides.
Yeah, I mean, to give you a simple example, that when the pandemic happened a few years back, and I know, I'm sorry, we're all suffering from PTSD from the pandemic, and you don't need the reminders, but just quickly, I promise. There was a lot of talk about how it drove digital transformation. Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, said that it had driven, I think it was 3 years of transformation in 3 months. It may have been 2 years and 2 months, but regardless. And I'm not sure that's true. it seemed the right thing at the time, but for most industries and most organizations, it was about digitization. It was about doing the same thing, but doing it in a different way, because now you couldn't have everybody in the office working together. You had to sort of have people working remotely. So you saw tremendous growth in the things like the virtual meetings platforms and Zoom and Teams and all that kind of stuff. And you saw growth in work management software. But you didn't see, unless you were in an industry like, you know, fast food, you didn't see a radical reimagining of what business was. And I think if you're talking about transformation, you've got to look at ways you can take that technology and actually turn it into something that is different than you could do before, whether that's a whole new set of processes or whether that's a whole new set of business capabilities, if we take it to the extreme. Let's get on with this idea of what the heck digital transformation really is, if we talk about what it isn't. Well, so you can see here the why, the what, and the how. Before I talk about the bullet points, I'm not just going to read them. Let's just look up at the top corner there. Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So you've got to be clear before you go, oh, let's do this digital transformation thing, about what it is you're trying to achieve. Because you shouldn't be saying, oh, we need to leverage this new technology. Okay, why? What are you going to do that's different, better, more profitable, less risky, whatever it might be? What's going to change? Why is this technology necessary? And then how are you going to do that? What's the best way of doing it? And if we look at the bottom piece there, where I put those three words, we talk a lot about digital transformation, and the how is probably the digital, but the what has to be the transformation. The technology itself is not why you do something. I have a background in projects. I've spent all of my career managing projects, programs, portfolios, PMOs, whatever it might be. And for a lot of that career, the focus was on, we have to deliver on time, on scope, and on budget. Well, there's not a CEO on the planet who said, I'm going to invest $1 million in a project because I want to deliver on time, on scope, and on budget. They invest that $1 million because they want to get some kind of benefit out of it, a new product, a new service, less risk, lower operating costs, the ability to expand into new markets, whatever it might be. We've got to take that same mindset with digital transformation. The on time, on scope, and on budget bit is important. That's the technology. But it has to deliver benefit, value to the business. It has to make something better, and better implies different. But you also have to make sure at all times that everybody involved in it understands what makes this successful. They have to understand that context, because if you don't think about that, then you're not going to have the right OKRs, KPIs, the ways of measuring your performance. You're not going to know whether you're successful or not. And that's why if you look at the various reports and statistics on this, you see all kinds of scary numbers about anything from 70 to 90-something% of digital transformations fail to achieve their business goals. Well, I'd argue that a whole heap of those didn't really have clear business goals. So I'm sure most of you have worked on projects in one form or another. If you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, you can't be sure that you're doing it in the right way. And that's what's happening in a lot of these digital transformations. When you think about how much money is involved, that's truly scary. It really is. So you have to think about these elements before you do anything else, because that's the foundation that everything else builds on. All right. I'm going to go to that slide, and hopefully that changed for everybody. So there's a sort of catchphrase, buzzword sort of thing about change management that says, do change with people, not change to people. And I think that's sort of a key part of what I'm trying to get at here, that you have to make sure that everybody involved is engaged in what you're doing. Because if they're not, something's going to go wrong. You have to make sure that you've got your people, your processes, and your tools engaged with what you're planning to change. The people is obviously the key part of that, but people forget the process and tools. You can't change a part of how you operate as a business without thinking about the downstream and upstream impacts of that. And it probably means that a lot of your software needs to at least integrate more, if not change fundamentally. And it certainly means your processes need to be reviewed and potentially automated, even if you're not actually changing too much about some of them. And if you're truly transforming your business, some processes will become obsolete, some tools may become obsolete, new tools, new processes, changes in interactions, changes in integrations. It's a fundamental change. It's kind of like dropping a stone into a pond, right? The ripples spread out. Well, digital transformation is a honking great stone. So when you drop that, those ripples go a long way, and they're potentially creating quite a lot of disturbance on the surface. You also need to make sure that you're aligning all of your work with what matters to the business. Because if you don't, then you're going to find yourself doing stuff that doesn't matter. Strategic portfolio management as a discipline now is becoming much more broadly accepted, where we do a lot more top-down management. Goals and objectives, strategic priorities set by the executives, but also those high-level major investments. And then somebody owns each of those investments as an individual who is accountable for delivery, and they work however they want to actually deliver the work. But at all times, doesn't matter how junior you are on a project team, you can tie your individual contribution back to the strategic goal and objective that you're actually trying to improve the performance of. And that's critical when it comes to digital transformation, because so many people working in so many different areas, doing so many different things, if they don't have that North Star, then things are going to go wrong, things are going to get lost. You have to manage everything as a whole. It's not, digital transformation may be a series of projects, but it's not a series of projects. It's a major program. It may even be a portfolio of programs in large organizations. And you have to manage it as part of a cohesive whole, not as a whole bunch of different things that you just so happen to put in the same report. And then, of course, the technology has to integrate with itself as part of the digital transformation, but then with the rest of the organization. Take AI as an easy example. If you're trying to implement an AI-enabled piece of software as part of a digital transformation effort, you've got to make sure that that tool has access to the right data and only the right data, that the quality of that data is there, and that all the integrations are in place for that to happen. But then that the output of that AI actually goes where it's needed, where it can do the most good. Otherwise, it's disjointed and you're not optimizing the return on your investment. If you're not optimizing the return on your investment, that's not good. And then finally, the world has this nasty habit of keeping to move forward. It doesn't stand still. It doesn't wait while you do your digital transformation and then start up again. So you're going to have to be prepared to adapt and adjust. There's going to be disruption. We live in a world right now where disruption is the norm. There's no getting away from it. If you make plans for what you're going to do 12, 18, 24, 36 months from now, guess what? They're going to be wrong. And that's okay, as long as you can adapt and adjust. If you can't, could be some problems ahead. And that's where a lot of these failures come in, because the digital transformation is intent on delivering what mattered a year ago. That doesn't help anybody. You've got to deliver what's needed, not even today, but what's needed 6, 9, 12 months from now when the solutions are actually ready for prime time. And then you've got to be able to build on that. It sounds difficult, and it's why a lot of organizations fail. But it's not as difficult as you would think if you have that context, that focus, that alignment, so that everyone is moving in the same direction. And you've got the ability to manage that in one single management approach supported by one integrated piece of software. All right, let's talk a little bit about how we embrace this change concept, because at the end of the day, all of this is change. You know, organizations do two things fundamentally. They do their normal day-to-day business, what you'd call the normal operations, and then they do the stuff that is designed to improve that, the discretionary stuff, the projects. Well, digital transformation is a recognition that there is less and less of that stable operation to more and more of the continuous advancement, the continuous evolution of business. We're getting into a world now where digital transformation is almost a daily thing. because whatever you do today may well need to be upgraded, improved, streamlined, optimized tomorrow. Maybe not literally tomorrow, but it doesn't stand still. You're going to have to keep going forward. So when you are looking to invest in a major initiative, as digital transformation inevitably will be, you need to plan for change. Any of you who have worked in an agile environment knows that that's relatively easy to do if you plan for it. The whole point of agile is we build something, we get feedback, we build it again, we improve it, we add to it, we enhance it until we get to the point where something is what we need it to be. You need a small a agile mindset when you're committing to a digital transformation, because it is going to change. You are going to get feedback from users, whether that's internal or external, to say, yeah, this isn't quite working for us. We need something a bit different. The world's going to move on and you're going to have to adjust that way. The regulatory environment's going to change. The economic environment's going to change, macro or micro level. You've got all kinds of competitors potentially who are out there trying to get a step up on you as you're trying to get a step up on them. That's going to drive change into things. And then any of you who work with customers know those customers are downright annoying sometimes. And they keep wanting different things and new features. And if you don't deliver to them, then they're going to go somewhere else. So you've got to adapt and adjust to that. Oh, and by the way, the rest of the business, the rest of the stuff that you have to do, the streamlined operations, the risk management, the regulatory compliance, the audit and governance functions, all that still has to happen even while you're transforming the business. And you can't just put some of it on hold to do the rest. So you have to make sure you're continuously managing that alignment between what you need to achieve, where you're investing your money, and the work that you're doing. If you don't keep that alignment in place, you're going to run into difficulties. If you do keep that alignment in place, all of a sudden digital transformation becomes maybe not easy, but certainly easier. All right.
Andy, I want to
Yes.
hit on one of the points you're making here,
Yeah.
which is, I think it's important. We are in a bit like we were in COVID. You know, the need for a PMO to manage disruption is becoming more and more of a necessity. So, how does that tie into you know, the transformation theme?
PMOs, I love PMOs. I have to say, I have run PMOs, I've set them up, I've shut them down, I've rebuilt them. I've spent more years than I care to remember telling people how PMOs should be run for success. But there are still so many bad PMOs out there that think that they exist as a reporting and a governance function. That's important, but you can automate all that. That's not even digital transformation, that's just digitization automation. PMOs, to add value, needs to be that communications hub between the executives and the work. They need to make sure that they are managing that alignment. We talk about keeping that alignment between what you're doing, why you're doing it, how you're benefiting from it, easy for me to say, in a world that is constantly changing. Well, the executives are making the decisions around those changes. The teams and doing the work and the projects in plan-driven or hybrid or agile or ad hoc ways or whatever, and they may not be projects, they may be epics, they may be programs, release trains, whatever they might be, value streams. Whatever that might be, you have to have that PMO as a function to connect all those pieces together. It's kind of like whack-a-mole at times, right? That so many things are changing all the time and you've got to try and keep on top of it. The PMO, the good PMOs, are gonna be the catalyst for success in this kind of initiative. The bad PMOs are either gonna be shut down, pushed out of the way, or they're gonna destroy the ability to succeed. PMOs are critical to this, and organizations need to make sure they've got the right PMOs focused on the right things. At the strategic level, value management office, EPMO, SPMO, whatever you want to call that, and at the departmental level where the actual rubber meets the road and the real work gets done. But yeah, good point, Jose. PMOs critical to this, absolutely critical. All right, so I talked a little bit about the idea of managing this through a central solution. Obviously, we're presenting this today in conjunction with OnePlan, but I'm not saying this because we're presenting this in conjunction with OnePlan. I've worked with a lot of organizations over the years, and this concept, the business concept of strategic portfolio management, backed up by strategic portfolio management software, is absolutely essential. It's a new way of thinking, or an evolving way of thinking, of how not just you plan, but how you invest, how you deliver, and how you tie everything you do back to those benefits. If you want to transform a business, by definition, you're doing a lot of different things that touch a lot of different areas. Trying to manage that in a tool that is not enterprise level and integrated with everything else is not just difficult, it's downright impossible. If you've got data in two places, you never know what's right. If you've got data in one place that feeds directly to the enterprise solution for reporting and analytics and decision making and planning and visualization, all the rest, then you've got much more confidence. And you need to be able to do that regardless of which department's doing the work, regardless of how the work is happening. And you need to be able to communicate back out to those departments in a way that makes sense. And if you can do that, then I won't say the management takes care of itself, but the software enables you to focus on being a difference maker. There's a lot of talk about AI automating menial administrative tasks. And there'll come a point where that can happen in a way that it can be trusted and doesn't have to be checked every 2 minutes. But SPM is already there. AI helps, it's an overlay, it's an enabler that accelerates performance there. But as an SPM solution, you've got the ability to manage and track all of the information across the organization and allow you to focus on the business decisions that are going to drive performance. Because the digital transformation is about changing, improving, optimizing the business. And if all you're focusing on is the details of execution of technology or process or training people on new UIs or whatever, you're losing sight of the new business capabilities, the new value streams, the optimized performance, the improved profitability of products and services, the reduced risk exposure in your internal operations, whatever it might be that you are trying to achieve as you reimagine your business in a future-ready digital sense. You need to be able to let the software do its job and focus on the business value. So if any of you are using spreadsheets as enterprise tools, please stop. But if any of you are trying to use 20 different tools for different parts of the business and different ways of delivering work, and then trying to consolidate that back into some solution, please stop that too. I had somebody email me yesterday who said, hey, can we jump on the phone for an hour? Because we're trying to centralize how we manage our portfolio of projects and come up with a PowerPoint template for how we can do that. And I'd like to talk it through with you. And I'm like, okay, well, sure, happy to talk on the phone for an hour, but we're not going to talk about how you can use PowerPoint. We're going to talk about why you should never use PowerPoint as a way to consolidate information from a whole bunch of different projects. Because it's a standalone tool that you do manually that is going to have errors in it. Some of you probably noticed that I missed a typo in one of my earlier slides. These things happen. And if decisions are being made that impact the future of the business based on manual updates, no good things can come from that. It just can't. All right.
Andy,
yes.
Sorry to,
that's okay, Jose.
I caught you. I thought what was interesting here is you're within your spheres, you have all of the management elements, and they're not technology, which is where the focus a lot is. From project managers and digital transformation leaders. So it's in everything else that needs to be integrated.
I mean, I bought for my business a new laptop just before Christmas. And I could quite easily sit on, I use Lenovo machine, so I could quite happily sit on Lenovo's website and spec out all the different things and, oh, this processor and this much memory and all the rest. But it's not about, is it 64 gigs of RAM or 32 gigs of RAM? It's about, what do I need to achieve? What do I need to use this for? And then what technology does that drive me towards? That's where you have to focus. You have to put the business before the technology. Because at the end of the day, and I say this as somebody who used to be a CIO, the only reason we use technology is to enable business performance. That's it. There is no reason to have an IT department if all you're doing is putting cool technology in place. That's great, but how does it make the business better? Business comes first, always, always, always. All right, I've lectured you enough on this theory. So let's talk a little bit about how we can make it happen for you in your world. But before we do, we're going to make you do a little bit of work because we've got a polling question for you. So Tanya, if you don't mind launching the poll, if I haven't broken that with my screen sharing here, and we'll get your thoughts as attendees on what you think for this. There we go. I see it says poll open. So I'm guessing there's a poll open right now. Let me do this and I can probably see it. There we go. So we'll give you a little bit of time to read through the options and see what you think. Jose, do you want to offer some thoughts on what people are going to say to this, or do you want to sit on the fence and not be proved wrong?
I mean, based on our interaction with our customers, you know, there's a number of different factors here that would come into play, but I'm willing to wager that you know, alignment is probably near the top, and probably the bottom one, lack of buy-in. So let's see how it comes out.
I tell you whether you were right or wrong, but I get to see the polls as the results as they're coming in, so I won't cheat. All right. I think probably we've had enough time now. So Tanya, can we share the results? There we go. All right, there we go. Tanya's viewing. So alignment. Gosh darn it, I can't say you were completely wrong there, Jose.
I'm surprised about vision and strategy, because usually there's, you know, organizations are long on vision and strategy, and it's really on synthesizing it and getting everyone to go along in the same direction, which addresses the alignment. So it's interesting on vision and strategy.
Yeah, so if you want to share more as to why you chose that one, then throw that into the Q&A or in the chat, and we can talk about that in a few minutes. All right.
I think there's an interesting one here for you. How do you overcome the lack of buy-in? I think that's alignment is, you know, there's probably techniques and tactics to try to drive that through conversation as a digital transformation lead, but the buy-in challenge is a more difficult one, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the easy thing to say is if you don't have buy-in, then you've got a communication issue. You're not doing a good job of explaining why you're doing what you're doing and why it matters. But I think that there's a bigger issue there, that if leaders find that there are pockets where buy-in isn't happening or where there's resistance, it maybe suggests that you've got the wrong plans, and maybe you're not involving the right people in developing the right strategies and the right plans and pursuing the right kind of transformation. Buy-in's a huge issue globally. Gallup does a survey every year on employee engagement. The last year that results are available for was 2023. But at that point, global employee engagement was 23%, less than 1 in 4. And the scary thing is that's the highest that Gallup has ever recorded, which is terrifying. But hidden below those headlines is the fact that best practice organizations have got employee buy-in of 70%. So if you're getting resistance, if you're not getting buy-in, if you're not getting engagement, then it might suggest that you're not doing a good job of managing relationships and involving people in deciding what you should be doing. So just a thought. All right, let's go back to the slides. I'll just finish up quickly and then hand over to Jose, who's going to do all the exciting stuff. So let me do, there we go. All right, so we can talk about theory all day, but at the end of the day, you're going to leave this webinar and think, all right, so what? Well, if you want to make this happen for your organization, and if your organization is considering or working towards digital transformation, then you do want it to be successful, then you have to look at these different elements. You have to make sure that you're flowing through this. I'm not going to read all the bullet points. We're getting a little short on time, so I want to make sure that we have time for questions. But make sure you consider all of these pieces. Make sure that you are continuously challenging whether your business is good enough. And if it isn't, whether technology is the solution. Because while technology is the answer to a lot of problems, technology is useless unless it is leveraged appropriately. So yes, there's training there, there's the process and the automation, the integration piece, but there's also making sure that you've got the right tool for the job. I spent a couple of years working for a public sector organization in Ontario, Canada, that was looking to replace a 25-year-old system that basically managed their entire services to their consumer base, their public base. And there was no such piece of software that you could buy off the shelf. This is a fairly specialist government function. So they tried to take a product from the insurance industry and modify it. And they committed a lot of money to the licensing. They committed a lot more money to the consulting firm that they brought in to try and help with this. And to give you some idea of how much money they spent on that, Air Canada put on additional flights between Chicago and Toronto for 2 years, simply because of the increase in the number of people from this consultant Chicago office flying to Toronto every week. It was a massive amount of money, and the fundamental issue was it was the wrong software. They were trying to force a very square peg into a very round hole, and it wasn't working. So you've got to make sure that you get those fundamental pieces right. And then you keep looking and challenging and seeking out that continuous improvement. And when you're done, you need to recognize that you're really not done. You've just created the starting point for the next transformation. And this transformation is never going to end. When I first started work, we had 1 year of hell as everything changed, followed by 4 or 5 years of stability when nothing changed. That doesn't happen anymore. We're always changing. We have to always change or we're falling behind. So it's not about processes to make this successful. It's not about technologies to make this successful. It's about mindset. It's almost about culture, about thinking about your business in a new way, about questioning how you operate and whether there is a better way of operating. And that's what I really want to leave you with on this. And you know, the words on the slide are what they are, but the sentiment here is, don't view it as just another program or just another initiative. View it as fundamental change powered by technology. But technology is just the fuel that gets you where you want to be. All right, Jose, I know we're going to have a few questions, but I've been talking for way too long. So I'll get Tanya to take things away from me and give them to you. And you can take us through a little bit of how OnePlan's enabling transformation.
Excellent. So I'm going to just show a few of the capabilities of OnePlan in support of digital transformation. And what I have here is I'm going to play the role of a first a portfolio manager, because I can see again in the PMO all of the different transformation initiatives that we might have, and we've set them here as portfolios. And we're using a what we call our standard out of the box planning hierarchy, which by the way is flexible. So if we needed to have additional elements here, we could. In this case, it's portfolios with programs and projects. So I'm going to change hats and be the digital analytics transformation lead, and what the user would see here. And we do this when we do our implementation services. We literally set this up for each user. So that means that I would only be seeing my transformation portfolio. And so in this case, it's a portfolio, and I will open this up so you can see that I have a program and I have a number of different initiatives that are in support of meeting the program and the portfolio. I'll note that there are different types of initiatives, and they're being managed, they might be managed in different source systems. You don't actually need any other tool to manage projects, programs, portfolios within OnePlan, but we do give you the ability to integrate. As you can see here, the icons are highlighting where these items are coming from. In some cases, it's agile work from Azure DevOps. In other cases, it's from Jira. In other cases, it's from the Microsoft tooling. We have even Asana on Monday here. But as a portfolio transformation lead, I'm really interested at the high level. Am I meeting, the intended goals of my transformation program? So in this case, I have a details page that shows exactly what I'm managing to in terms of budgets and benefits. This is an annual transformation program, and it's made up of a one single program. And I could have other initiatives here, but in this case, we only have a program, and I do have some indicators, by the way, that can be calculated from the metrics that I have. One important visualization I'll show is, what exactly is this tied to in terms of the rest of the organization. And I think, this is our visualizer, which we utilize to establish the relationships between all different plan types and elements within our solution. So you can see that this portfolio, which has a program, has the projects that we saw earlier, but more importantly, it's highlighting where these projects or epics, these initiatives are supporting key results and objectives. More interestingly here, we see some that actually don't have any connection to key results. So, why exactly are we doing these? So, you could be, again, inquiring and asking that question, or, remediating by simply coming in and doing the alignment exercise if you wanted to, directly by adding the key results. So again, highlighting one of the important elements that you talked about having that daisy chain connection to your objectives and key results. You can see the status, by the way, also. So, in the case of items that are not performing, you could also come in here and, trigger a comment or, additional remediation action with another stakeholder. So again, I'm at the highest level still, trying to understand exactly the relationship with the rest of the elements of strategy. Now, I could further go down and to my program, which is really where the collection of initiatives is being done. It's an annual program. Now I'm at the program level, and I can see program budget. And you can also note that this information is really coming from the summary of the initiatives, which we saw earlier, and also our financial planner. So if you wanted to actually do detailed program budgeting, in this case, you can, and we have the ability to expand this as needed. The other interesting perspective is, in terms of timing when things are coming in, here's where our work plan roll-up allows us to actually see that. Because you might be trying to understand, okay, when are the benefits going to be hitting? So I can literally go and open my Gantt and then try to understand, okay, for these items, by the way, I could select the items that I want to consider. Maybe not all of them are meaningful in terms of the outcomes that I'm looking for, but maybe I want to include there's this Azure DevOps Agile work that's coming in, so I will include it also. So you can, again, select it, and then I get to see, again, the entire scope of work and when is the release hitting, And is it going to be at the same time as our cybersecurity rollout? It looks like we are right around the same time frame. So that's something that our leadership wanted to know, so we can address that. So at a program level, in terms of being able to understand the impact, you can actually see that here. In terms of reporting, again, if you're a transformation portfolio lead, program lead, you have the ability to generate that status report. The status report actually is snapshotted over time. It has a submittal process. You can define different elements here. You can even use our Sophia GPT to generate a summary status report which you can then include in your narrative. So this is the integration of Azure Secure, Azure OpenAI into the OnePlan platform. And so this is just one example of the use of Gen AI for generating status reports and using the data that you're showing here. So it's important that you actually do update the information within the forms. And you could always export this. I know folks always say, hey, can you export it to a PDF to send? You can do that also. But more importantly, you could be having approvers that actually receive it and get to opine on whether the status report is accurate. At any time, you could be adding a comment or having notifications issued. So there's a lot here in terms of managing the status process. This is one perspective that we can have, which is, again, looking at a fairly standard portfolio program project. I want to take another perspective with a new capability that we have, which has to do with our new hierarchy builder or virtual hierarchy. So here I'm taking the role of a capability owner, and I'm going and trying to understand all of the different elements that I'm going to be taking into account for improving the capability. So I have an initiative to improve the brand management capability. Capability being enterprise architecture, business architecture element concept. So I own that, and I want to see what I need to do in order to improve that. We have other capabilities here, but I'm really focusing on brand management. You can see that what we've done is within the list view, showing you the ability to incorporate capabilities, epics, key results and objectives, applications even, and then projects that are impacting the capability. And we did that by actually, again, building a separate hierarchy to reflect all of the different elements that I'm going to be taking into account. And it is interesting because now we're talking not only about projects and epics, but the applications that might be part of this supporting this capability. I see that there's one objective here, which is interesting because this objective and this key result is clearly not not only being impacted by this capability. So if I wanted to see, okay, I could be drilling down into any of these elements to understand exactly what's going on. So if I wanted to see, here's a capability, and I could try to understand, okay, what else is being driven by this key result. So I could come in and try to take that perspective. Because it's not only the key result that is being impacted. The other element would be to actually go to a corporate strategy and then look at that objective. Similarly, what we have done is included within this different hierarchy, new hierarchy, all of the elements that are impacting the objective. So that's where I can actually drill down further and see that it's objective key results, but it's also a number of different projects, applications that are impacting the objective. So again, giving you the ability to drill down and see the different perspectives as a transformation lead in order to understand the impact. All of this is supported obviously by our Power BI reporting. So here we have a number of different reports available as part of our service. You can make changes to these, and and in this particular case, we do get to the transformation portfolio, and you have your 4 dimensions that we present, which is your overview, a lot of focus on status and financial information, specific financial breakdowns, and then the execution data. And here obviously we could go further down into the actual initiatives. So plenty of reporting capabilities to maximize with your leadership. So with that, I think I'm going to stop, and I guess I hand it over to you, Andy, for closing comments and questions.
Yeah, I guess, Tanya, I don't know if we have any questions or whether we did such a good job that no one had any questions at all.
Well, you did a great job, but there are some questions. How's that?
We'll go with that.
That's
Hang on, let me share
perfect.
my screen again. You come here. I have a mouse that's got a mind of its own here. Come on. There we go.
So the first question we received from the audience is, how do you develop the matrices for the goals and benefits measurements?
From a business standpoint, I would say that if you're going to invest in anything, then before you decide what you're going to do, you have to decide what you need to achieve. And that's not just, oh, we want to improve our performance in a certain market with a product or service, or we want to eliminate risk or reduce risk in this particular operational area. You have to figure out, why are we even thinking of spending this money? And then you have to quantify what you need to get out of it. If you don't have a sense of what the overall objective is, reduce costs by so many million or so much % or whatever it is, then you cannot possibly decide whether you've got the right investment in place. We are good when we approve new pieces of work in saying, this is what we're going to do, and this is how much it's going to cost, and this is how long it's going to take. But we're very bad at saying, this is the benefit it's going to deliver. This is how long it's going to take for that benefit to be delivered. And if we don't do that piece first, then we can never be sure that we're doing the right thing. So that fundamental piece is where we have to start. What are we doing? What are we getting out of it? Not just, oh, more money, less cost, more market share, whatever it is, but quantifying that. Sometimes you can't necessarily quantify the measurement, but you can come up with a proxy and you define that up front, get everyone to agree to it. Then when you're actually planning out the pieces of work, then each piece of work can contribute to 1 or 2 more of those targets, and probably each target requires several pieces of work and investments to achieve the full goal. So from a business standpoint, that's how you do it. Jose, I know from a solution standpoint, there's lots of different ways that you can visualize that connection between what you're doing work-wise and why you're doing it in terms of goals and objectives.
That's right, yes. I think the more interesting scenario that we've been testing with Gen AI is, when you have a performance gap, how do you bridge it? And I think this with Gen AI can support in doing analysis of either initiatives that have to be created in order to bridge that performance gap, or even just creating the metrics model in order to get to the objective. So it's a critical starting point, if you will, to deconstruct how you're going to achieve the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Here's a question. It's for you. I could answer it too, but Jose, does OnePlan integrate with Azure DevOps?
Absolutely. It's one of our more popular connectors, and we have the ability to bidirectionally bring your Azure DevOps process template data into OnePlan, and then if needed, for instance, some scenarios where you create an epic in OnePlan in a lean portfolio management scenario, then you would want to take that epic and back to Azure DevOps in order for the teams to deconstruct it into features, stories, and tasks. So absolutely, and it's one that we support frequently. I'll add that the objective of that is to have visibility of all initiatives in the organization. And with agile work being done in Azure DevOps, you want to bring that and make it part of the the overall portfolio visibility.
This one might be for both of you. So we've already tried digital transformation and kind of had a failing at it. How do we regain employee support so we can try again?
I'll start from a business standpoint. I think the first thing you need to do is understand why you failed. And that's not scapegoating. That's, okay, what do we need to do differently next time to achieve a different outcome? And that might take a while to really get to the root cause, and not just identifying the symptoms, but understanding what caused those symptoms and how they can be prevented next time. The next thing I think is transparency. Don't try and hide what happened or gloss over what happened, but say, hey, look, we didn't achieve the business goals that we wanted to the last time we tried a transformation, but we did learn a lot. Even if we only learned what didn't work, this is where we think we went wrong. This is how we're planning to do it differently. And then most important of all, I have been hearing since the first day I started work, when the world was black and white and dinosaurs roamed the earth, that people are your most important asset. It's true, but it's a cliche these days. People don't recognize that actually means something, but they are. So work with them. It's back to that adage of doing change with your people, not to your people. If you want to engage people in the process, engage them in doing the work, engage them in defining what that work should be, how you should go about doing things, what you might be able to achieve, whether there's a better way. If they feel a sense of ownership of the solution, then they'll be engaged in the work to deliver on that solution. And it's not actually difficult to get that engagement if you acknowledge what happened before, embrace the opportunity to do it again and do things differently. If you try and truly engage with people and build an environment where they trust that they will be respected and believed and have the ability to contribute, it's not as difficult as you might think it is. If you're having problems doing it, then maybe there's a lack of transparency or a lack of understanding really what went wrong, or people don't feel that they're really being engaged with in the process, that they're still being ignored, for want of a better term.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100% with all of that. Only two additional points is, knowing that you were not successful, assess why it happened, as Andy said, but also the next round, if it is truly transformative in the sense of getting to a different future state, you have to make sure you have, even from the highest point of leadership, not only the immediate stakeholder, but highest point of leadership that can support and drive that change. In so many instances, we see where transformation is actually organization-wide, and they are localizing change management only to the business unit and the function. So it's something that requires from the top down statements persuading support for the entire organization. The second is be more realistic in terms of what the organization can accomplish. A lot of times, there's a transformation change that is way beyond the ability of the organization to adapt to it. So it's a matter of understanding, the capacity for change within the organization, and then structure the transformation around that. So to make it more realistic.
This time for one maybe last question. I think this is pretty much a follow-on to the question we just had. So the question is, how do you go about it if the intended buy-ins are not in from the business unit? So it sounds like the business units aren't really buying into the transformation efforts. What are the next steps you would recommend?
I would say stop. You're not going to succeed if people don't buy in. So hit the pause button. figure out why the buy-in isn't occurring, and address those underlying issues. A lack of buy-in is not a problem. A lack of buy-in is a symptom of another problem. People aren't saying, I don't buy into this digital transformation just because I don't buy into it. They don't buy into it because they think, to Jose's point, it's unrealistic, or that it's focused in the wrong areas, or that it's being done at the wrong time or in the wrong way, or some combination of all of those different things. But if buy-in isn't happening, then before you keep trying to push it down people's throats and generating more and more resistance and more stress, more and more liabilities to the organization, and increasing the chance of staff departures and turnover, then figure out what is the underlying issue and what can be done to address it. It's not about necessarily saying changing what you need to do because some people don't like it, but it's definitely at the very least about changing how it's being communicated, how people understand the impact, why it's important to them, what's in it for them going down this road. And if you can do that, then if it's the right solution, you'll get buy-in. If there is a need to refine or fundamentally change even some elements, then you'll learn that too. But I would never keep pushing against a lack of buy-in. I would simply say, okay, let's understand what the real underlying issues here, and let's see what we can do to address them or to remove any concerns.
I think you hit on the key words, Andy, which is what's in it for me, for the stakeholder, and that technically we can argue that or that your compelling reasons are not articulated strongly enough in a business case, because there's always the need to show if we don't do this, what are the consequences to the organization? Yeah. Now for hippos, not getting stock options and getting paid is one, and that could be compelling to drive change within the rest of the organization. But it could be a risk mitigation, cost avoidance elements that that drive, whether you like it or not. We have to go in this direction because otherwise the consequences are far too great for the organization. And I think that's missed sometimes because we focus too much on ROI and not on the consequence of not acting.
That's a very good point.
At the top of the hour, great questions, everyone, and great answers, Andy and Jose. Thank you very much for joining us today. For the next steps, we do have a free OnePlan trial if you're interested in checking it out and seeing what we can do for you. On Andy's side, we can do a roadmap workshop, as well as a personalized one-on-one demo if you'd like to meet with someone like Jose, who's an expert in the software, and have them walk you through it one-on-one. That's really helpful for a lot of organizations, as it is a very robust software program, so we can help you kind of get where you need to be and do that personalized for where your business is right now. Our contact information is on the bottom, and I really appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.